thank you everybody for joining us this evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Justin Tipper, and I'm one of the guides on the entrepreneur's journey with my co-host, my co-guide, Jan. And Jan's going to take us through this evening. Over to you, Jan.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I'm Jan Tinsley. I'm a businesswoman. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm also a wife, a mother, and one of my favourite roles, which is a granny. But I absolutely love business, and I love being able to do as many sort of businesses and projects and things as I possibly can. And what I've really enjoyed doing lately is I did an accreditation as a coach consultant, and I've really enjoyed starting to share my experience because I've been in business for 40 years. And I think this has sort of given me the courage to be able to share some of the stories and also some of my experiences, because I do have a business and marketing background. So that's my sort of academic background, if you like. But I've been at the coalface since, as I say, for sort of 40 years. Running our own businesses. So I've got a lot of experiences. We've had some fantastic successes. We've had some awful failures, but they all add up to this amazing experience in business. And I'm really excited to be able to sort of share this particular section with you over the next hour, because what Justin and I have done is we've put together a course which is going to be like a weekend course, and it's called The Entrepreneur's Journey. And it's based on Joseph Campbell's model of the hero's journey, which is something that you see and you'll recognize in lots of stories, lots of books, lots of stories of business people, but things like Harry Potter and just about every novel that you've ever read follows this theme with this cyclical effect of how life goes. But what happened with me was I recognized it as how business goes. So we've put that together as a weekend course. And as a taster, what we've done is put 3 workshops together, these free webinars, just to give you a little taster of some of the material that we want to cover. And this particular session tonight, we've called it Finding Clarity, how important it is for you to find clarity in your business. I'm going to start by telling you a story about what happened to me when we had started one of our big projects, which was we'd bought Coutts & Co. Bank in Onken, and we were going to convert it into luxury apartments. And it was in this sort of early process. I was having a meeting with a lighting designer, actually, and I suddenly found that my heart had started to race. And I think I had experienced something like that before, and I knew that I was just able to calm it. If I just sort of sat quietly, I could do some breathing, I could just calm it. But on this occasion, it didn't stop. Not my heart stopped, but it kept on racing. And it just kept on happening. And I thought, I think I better ring the doctors. So I rang the doctors, and it was about 2 o'clock. They said, oh, that's really lucky. We've just had a cancellation at 4 o'clock. If you could come in at 4 o'clock. I said, absolutely, I'll be there. Well, it was about 2 o'clock then, and by 4 o'clock, I knew it was still happening. So I walked into the doctor's surgery, walked in, saw the doctor, and he said, I'll just take your blood pressure, take your pulse, and then he said, it's 152 beats a minute. Well, this was from obviously just sitting still. So he said, would you go and take a seat in the waiting room? Which I did. And then he called me back in and he said, can you get up to the hospital? I said, yes, because I'd driven myself there. So I thought, well, I can drive myself to the hospital because my husband was on the golf course. So I knew there was absolutely no chance of getting hold of him. And he said, well, we've got a bed waiting for you on ward 4. You'll be admitted. So I drove up, walked into the hospital. Sure enough, there was a bed waiting for me. And there was all sorts of equipment and wires and various things waiting for me. And I got into bed, they got me wired up. And a lovely young doctor and a nurse came to see me. And he seemed really excited about the prospect of dealing with this patient whose heart was racing at 152 beats a minute. And he literally rubbed his hands together and explained to me some of the things that he was going to try. And he was chatting to the nurse. He only looked about 14, I would say, but nevertheless, I obviously put my faith in him. And he said, "Nurse, I think we'll try this, we'll try that." And then there was some sort of massage that he mentioned, where they massage one of your main arteries, but not both, because that would knock you out. And then he said, "But don't worry, if all else fails, we'll zap you." So I said, I didn't think it was a very good idea where he's got a lady sitting in bed, the heartbeat is already 152 beats a minute. I didn't think it was a good idea that he should say he was going to zap me. So I obviously looked quite concerned. He said, "But don't worry, if we do that," he said, we'll just sedate you first. Anyway, I had various other tests. Obviously, I was wired up to an ECG. He then attempted to take bloods. Well, I can assure you, if you ever try to have blood taken when your heart is already beating at 152 beats a minute, it's not a good idea. And when the consultant came, the place looked like a massacre. And he was asking, there were a few little expletives, what is going on here? Anyway, there's some discussion and I was to be kept in. And then at almost exactly 6 o'clock, I felt my heart go back to beating normally. So I called for the doctor, the nurse and the doctor came, and I said, "It's beating normally." And he sort of he thinks I was trying to get away with something. He looked at the ECG and sure enough, it was completely back to normal. So the reason why I'm telling you the story is the focus that it ended up giving me for me to find clarity in what I was actually doing at the time. Because I had to wear a heart monitor for 48 hours, I had various other tests and stress tests and treadmill and all this kind of thing. And everything seemed to have sort of calmed down. At a subsequent follow-up meeting with a most wonderful doctor called Jan Tinsley, who was up at Nobles in the Isle of Man, he gave me a quick examination, but then a sort of an interview. He was asking about my lifestyle, about what I did for work, about what I was doing at the time, and so on. So I explained a little bit about our various businesses, about the project that we've got on at the moment. And he could see I'm a pretty average weight, I'm quite sort of fit, I'm quite active. And he said, "Are there any particular stresses?" And I nonchalantly said, "Well, we are carrying a lot of debt." Which he sort of looked at me sideways like this, and he was scribbling little notes that I was saying. And he said, "We'll pay the debt off then." And I wanted to chuckle. I felt a little bit indignant by such a flippant answer, but I didn't actually tell him that the debt was 4 million quid. So I didn't think he'd have perhaps quite the solution for me. But as I say, I felt a little bit indignant, left the meeting, but subsequently from that, I thought a lot about what he'd said. And I thought about the effect that this debt was having. And I realized that probably it had caused this, we called it my episode, which thankfully I've never had again either. My husband was really struggling. The 2008 property crash happened and changed everything that we were planning and hoping to achieve with the property project. And I realized that we were under a huge amount of pressure and that this debt was following us round like a big black cloud. And it was affecting everything that we were doing. So I decided that this is what I had to do, as well as managing the project, as well as keeping everything going, because at the time the banks weren't helpful at all. A lot of property projects were closed down. There was cranes just sitting idle for, I think some of them for 3 years. But I realized that this was something that no matter what, it was the absolute priority that whilst we kept the project going, we had to focus on getting rid of this debt. And this is what I did. I decided that at all costs, and no matter what it took, and no matter what I had to sell, this debt had to go. And so I was very, very clear on what I wanted. And the first part of this exercise is for you to write down exactly and precisely what it is that you want. Sometimes there's quite a lot of things that could be the key or could be something that you particularly want, but there could be, say, a lead domino that kind of starts this process off, or there's a choke point. There's a choke point that's stopping you doing something. And sometimes these are the things you have to deal with. Because as you can imagine, with a project like Coutts House, you can go online and have a look at it, it's couttshouse.com. There were so many things to think about. There were masses of decisions. There was a huge team to manage. There was just all sorts of things going on. But I made this one thing the thing that I had to do. So I was able to write down exactly and precisely what I wanted to do. And I did put a time frame on it. And I did put the couple of things that I was prepared to put in the pot. So the second thing that I did was I wrote a page of these are the reasons that I want this. And it's surprising when you start going on something like this, if you are used to journaling or free writing or something like this, you'll appreciate this. Because when you start going on something like this, you can write quite a lot of reasons, believe me. If I said to you, write 3 reasons, you could do it. If I said, write 10 reasons, you could do it. If I said, write 20 reasons, you can do it. If I said, fill an A4 piece of paper with reasons why you want to achieve this, you can do it. And then the next part of it, this size, is these are the reasons I believe I will have this. And the belief part of this is massive. It's crucial, it's paramount, because the rule is your powerful beliefs will always be played out in your experience. If you believe you can do something, you'll do it. If you believe you're not going to get any orders, you won't. If you believe that somebody is going to obstruct you or whatever, it will happen. Your beliefs will always play out, your powerful beliefs will always play out in your experience. And so you've got to put into this exercise the reasons why you believe you will have this. So if you like, at this moment, I'll just give you a little taster of the sort of things that came up for me. So for me, the reasons that I wanted it, we'd been in a situation quite a few years early when we first started up in business where we lost everything. And you can't believe that this sort of thing could come and haunt you again. So it was a big driver that that must never happen again. And in the meantime, we had made a huge success out of the business, which we'd started with another business. We'd sort of piggybacked with another business. So we had a financial services business and we started this other business at the same time. And what happened was the other business just became so successful. We actually ended up giving away our financial services business and we put all our efforts into the other business. And that one really came good. And although people called it an overnight success, it took almost exactly 10 years, which in my experience is about the length of time an overnight success takes, just in case anyone sort of suggests to you that you can have an overnight success. And in that time, in the 10 years, we sold that business. And I suppose you could say we were very, very successful. I was 49 years old. John's a couple of years older than me, and we'd effectively become millionaires. And so then we find ourselves in a fantastic situation, having made it and been really, really successful. And then we start on another project where you think, well, we've learned all this, we can apply all this again. And then it looks like it's all going to be taken away from you again, after a few years. So there were lots of reasons that I could put down why I wanted this. And part of it was that all the things to do with the kind of things that wealth, and I don't mean just monetary wealth, but it definitely does help because it provides you with so many choices, can give you. And so for me, I was driven that we were going to protect it all, that everything was going to work out okay. I wanted to help our two girls. They were both starting in business. They were producing grandchildren at a great rate of knots. I wanted to do things with them. So I'd had that wonderful experience of feeling that security, that independence, that freedom, that when you're financially independent, which is what we were, that we had that wonderful gift. And so I was able to think, yes, we've done that before, we can do it again. And these were the reasons. I was able to write a big, big list of the reasons why I wanted to get this out of the way. And the fortunate thing was, of course, with Coutts House, we had the collateral, but what we did have was a huge bank loan, and the bank put in quite a lot of pressure on, because they effectively, we were going to do a very short-term loan and sell all the properties and then pay the bank off. Anyone that's done any sort of lending from the bank will know that once you're borrowing money, then they want the interest paying regularly. They want fees for refinancing. They want fees for renewing. They want fees front end. They want fees back end. Just like whatever way you move. So I knew that by getting rid of this debt, we were going to, this big black cloud was going to disappear, and we could carry on with the project and put everything in it exactly the way we had planned it, which we never veered from, by the way. So the next important bit was the reasons I believe we'll have it. Well, my belief in that project was just a 110%, because we had created something that it's never been done on the island before. As far as I know, I don't think it's ever been done since. I just wrote a whole list about how I believed in the project, how the property, the spec in the property was fantastic, the lifestyle we were creating was fantastic, everything to do with the way the whole place would run, the support that people would have. My whole belief in that project, as I said, was just completely 120%. And so I was able to write a whole load of reasons of why I believe that I would be able to do this. And from doing that, I was then able to make a plan. And so to make a plan, my plan wouldn't be your plan, because obviously you've got something else that you're working on. But for me, the plan was all in. I just thought of absolutely everything I could do. I got out my marketing ideas. I got out everything that I'd created in the previous business that we knew was successful. And I put that plan together, and I showed up every single day with that plan ready to execute. I made sure all of the agents, the 3 agents that we were using, kept them on side. There was chocolates, there was flowers, there was all that kind of stuff. And what else we did is we literally invited every single member of the staff in those 3 agents. We invited them to come around for a tour of Coutts. So the team there, if somebody walked in and they'd heard about Coutts, they wanted to know something about it, those girls and those ladies and gentlemen, they had the tour, they knew it inside out, and I knew that they'd be just so impressed. They couldn't fail to be positive and complimentary and encouraging about what the property stood for. So that was, like, if you like, part of my plan, but that's a separate thing, because once you get the clarity you need on exactly what it is you want, why you want it, and why you believe you will have it, your plan, you will just be able to free flow into working out what your plan must be, because you already know what this plan has to be. You already know what's required. You can already write this plan, but you've got to be able to back it up with this clarity of exactly and precisely what you want, the reasons you want it, and why you believe that you will have it, because your powerful beliefs will always play out in your experience. Okie dokie. Shall I just take a little breather there and just ask, has anyone got any questions at that point, or any comments, or anything at all before?
Can I have a question?
Yes.
So what was your reason, like your real big reason for starting Coots then? I don't know if I missed that.
Oh, well, the reason that we started Coots was, well, I mean, that the thing, this exercise that I did, the thing that I wanted to do, what I exactly and precisely wanted to do, was pay off £4 million worth of debt. That was this exercise. This is what I did to make sure that I paid off £4 million worth of debt. And I wrote the reasons why I wanted to pay that debt off, and I wrote the reasons why I believe I could pay that debt off. But in terms of why we did Coots, I mean, which is not, you know, that was purely because we'd moved over to the island, we'd had a success, we'd got money in the bank. John would say he's retired, and at 49, I would stand over him, practically stamping my feet and banging my knuckles on the chair, going, "I'm not retired." So I wanted a project where I wanted to keep working. I'd say I loved business. We'd had some time off. We'd had a flutter. We'd done some few wild things. We'd spent some money. We'd made some bad decisions. We'd done one not very good investment, and so on. But we wanted to do another project, and as it happens, we were banking with Coots at the time, and the building was half empty. And I asked one day when we had a meeting up there, "Where is everyone?" And they said, "Oh, well, all the banking arm of Coots & Co has been moved to Jersey, and it's only the investment team left now, and they're going to move down to RBS in town." So I said, "Oh, what's happening to the building then?" And they said, "Well, we think it's going on the market." And I just said very casually, "Oh, well, keep us posted then." And they did. And they said it's going on the market. And then that was a little sort of crazy time as well, because we had to do sealed bids in the end. So you had no idea what anyone else was going to offer. And so we'd seen an architect, we'd seen a couple of people, we'd had a chat about it, we'd got this fantastic idea. Obviously, John and I, we've traveled a lot, we've seen ideas, we've stayed in some beautiful places, and so we were just dreaming, like, oh, we could do this, we could do that, we'll have this, and we'll put a swimming pool and all the rest of it, because this was when property was so buoyant. You just felt like you couldn't go wrong. So we just think, well, yeah, this would be a great project. And then we were actually in Florida, and I said to the guys, "Why don't we put an offer in for £50,000? I shouldn't be telling you this, really." I don't think I'll get into trouble, but this is what happened. I said, "Why don't we put an offer in for £50,000 more than anyone else?" Because I just sat and said, "Look, how much do we want it? How much do we want to do this?" And there was only four of us having this conversation, and we kind of agreed. Well, me and John have got the checkbook sort of thing. So we said, yeah, we really want to do it. And so that's what we did. And I was in SeaWorld with my dad, just about to take him in to see Shamu. And the phone rang and they said they won't accept the offer. They won't accept 50,000 more than anyone else. They said, you've got to put a figure. Well, I couldn't get hold of John because he was seeing the dolphins or something, whatever else we were doing. And so I said to my dad, look, Dad, could you just sit on that bench for a minute? I just need to do something. And I got on the phone and I said to our guy, this is how much I want to offer. And I put it all in pounds and pence, really obscure, you know, just as I could. And he texted me back and said, did you say bum, 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 bum? And I said, yes. And then we went in to see Shamu. And we didn't actually know till 2 days later that we had got it. And, you know, that's when fate deals its hand, doesn't it? And with our, you know, I'll just show you this little diagram because, you know, you've probably seen this, the hero's journey, this cyclical thing, which I absolutely love because it's just so valid in business. And little did we know, but then, of course, we were starting the cycle all over again because we did get it, and then property crash happened and we were left in with a big challenge. And that little scare just focused my mind. Unfortunately, it was really tough for John. Really, he really thought, oh, this is history repeating itself. We're going to lose everything again. He really struggled, really struggled. But that's why I'm so passionate about talking about business to as many people as I possibly can, because I do know that there are techniques. I have had experience. And there are little formulas that you can use and protocols, but there's nothing like the experience of being with your whatever the saying is, you know, when you're just absolutely up against it, and you've got to have that belief in yourself that you're going to get through. And I did have that belief that we would do it, and I was able to write a whole load of reasons why I believed that we could do it, and we did, thankfully. And there's, you know, a lot of people, the bank were paid off, we paid our mortgage off, we paid everything off. I did it with, at the time when I'd sort of done the cut-off, which took a little bit longer than the time I'd set, but I'd done it with 4,150,000 quid. And then we could breathe again. And then we started living again. And then we felt like millionaires again. but we
want people to be able to just practice this activity now, don't we, Jan?
Absolutely, absolutely, we do.
I just also want to ask, and how long did that journey took you to get to that point where you actually felt, okay, I can breathe again, we can live again? How long did that journey take you?
It took about, I mean, to be honest, as soon as it started happening, as soon as I'd made the plan, as soon as I put the things into action, I started to feel like it's okay, we're going to be okay. But it did take over 12 months. But it was, you know, it was a time when property was not selling. So it had to be, you know, slightly different change of plan. But it started to happen straight away. As soon as I showed up with this plan and this action taken, it started to happen straight away. And I knew we were going to be okay. Yeah. Okay, so do you want to have a go at this? Would you like to write down exactly and precisely what you want? If you've just got, you could just do this as a little test idea, but if you've got something in mind, you can write it down now.
And in your case, Jan, unlike a lot of goal setting that I might train within organizations, in this particular example, it can be a negative thing as well as a positive thing. What I mean by that is the idea of paying off a debt. In other words, I don't want this debt anymore, is actually framed negatively. But in this activity, that's fine because it's very, very compelling.
To be honest, Justin, I almost always, as you probably know what I'm going to say, I always frame it positively. Because it was, I am going to pay off this £4 million debt, which I know it kind of sounds like a negative thing, but and then I put a time frame, and I did put what else I was prepared to sell to make sure I did, and that included our house. It went in the pot, you know, whatever we could sell, I would sell it.
So question number one is, what specifically do you want? That's the important question here, isn't it, Jan?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So that you can write that down, and possibly if there are any little additional things that are meaningful to you, then add that in. So mine were that I was prepared to sell anything, whatever we've got, and I did put a time frame. I think at the time when I wrote it, I think I'd put by the end of the year. But you know, you can add a time frame if you want to. But you know, it might be quite a small thing. Like I said, just think about that lead domino that might trigger something that you want to happen, or a choke point, something that you feel like stopping you doing something that you need to sort out first. And it might be a really big thing, or it might be something much sort of shorter time frame, shorter term, smaller, but something that you just really want to happen or do or have. Would you like to have a go at writing down some reasons why you want this?
It might be helpful for me to add a couple more examples here, Jan. So when we did this activity months ago for the entrepreneur's journey,
Yes.
if you remember,
Yeah.
the what we wanted, so the answer to the first question was to share our own journeys and our own experience with other people. That's what we wanted to do. We wanted to find a format for doing that. And then an answer to question number two is, why do we want it? Or these are the reasons why we want this.
Yeah.
On a personal level, we wanted the feelings of satisfaction, joy, fulfillment with sharing our stories and our techniques, our ways of having what it is that we want. But also we wanted people to have aha moments, because that gives us a sense of accomplishment and joy. We want to raise other people up and see other people succeed. So those were just but I've got a list of maybe 20 different things.
So the reasons I believe I will have this.
Some examples from our activity that we did with this, Jan, if it helps people. Why do we believe we can have this or do this? Is that we have a lot of experience between the two of us of life in general and also of business. We have been there and done it. We have experience between us of running events, in other words, learning events. We already have some reputation in this area, and we're extremely motivated because of the answers to question two. We're extremely motivated to do this because it brings us so much joy and satisfaction. So those are some of the reasons why we believe we can do it. We've already been there in terms of doing the hard yards, The road of trials, it's called, on the hero's journey. And we've been in the abyss, in the pit of despair many, many times, and yet still here we are. So we have all of that. And if we can share that with other people, that's what really is driving us. I guess at this point, we could also say that this activity with the 3 questions is not an activity that you would normally be asked to do in 10 minutes. And it's, oh yeah, that's it, done and dusted with that. Take these 3 questions and have them on your desk, stick them up on post-it notes on the wall, and really think this through. It's this kind of thing that people generally need to sleep on and develop as entrepreneurs, people running your own business. You really need to take time to think about this and develop the answers. There's a culture of busyness now. Whenever you ask people how they are, or how things are going at work or whatever, they say, oh, I'm really busy. Okay, but the busyness prevents us sometimes from stopping and thinking about what's really, really important.
Yeah.
And the reason we need to do that is because the why of why we're doing something gives us our motivation. It gives us the strength to keep carrying on through the really, really difficult times. It's easy when the times are easy and you've got plenty of time to do stuff, you've got plenty of money and blah, 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 blah. It's really, really difficult to keep going when it's tough. And the way that you do that is think about, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so true. And I can tell you that the main part of this exercise, like you said, Justin, you've got to sleep on it, you've got to think about it, you've got to create it. What we actually ended up doing was we rented our house out for TT and went on holiday with the money. And it was on that holiday that I've still got the little notebook that I started writing. I dug it out just about 6 o'clock tonight. I thought, I know I've got it somewhere. And that was the notebook that I took on holiday to write these things and to hatch my plan. So yeah, you do need a bit of brain space for it. But then, of course, once you've got that, that's the basis for you to create your plan. The plan will have so much more power if you've done this exercise first. It'll just flow.
I think it's worth pointing out here that we're also going to develop this activity at the weekend in May that we're running at the Mill House, and allow people to really get into it in some depth as well. So we're going to be covering this. We're going to be covering this again. So thank you very much for joining us. Yeah.
Yes, thank you guys. Thank you very much.